Hey there, hi there, ho there. James J. Patterson here, coming to you live from the reading room at Alansquire Publishing. Today we're going to do a few things. We're going to talk about candlelight. We're going to read from a couple of really good books. Whenever I'm on a writing binge, my wife Rose likes to say, can tell I'm on a writing binge because she says, he goes back to the masters. And it's true. I have several authors that when I need inspiration and I need a kick in the tail, I go to immediately. The first one I'll talk about today is Yeats Delacroix and his memoir. It's a journal, and it's intimate. It's wise. It's like letters from a friend. It's amazing. I have a bunch of artist buddies up in Canada, the Ridpath Art Collective, and I went to get each one of them a copy of this, and I was going to send them all to them. And then I found out it's out of print. I could only find 2 copies, and I kept them both. But, so sorry, guys. But I'm going to read a couple of short paragraphs from this, just to give you a sample, and also to kind of get us in the mood for what's coming next. Here's a piece, and it's dated Thursday, the 17th of November, 1853. He's just gotten back to his lodging in Paris from a small opera. And here he is. As I listened to this enchanting little opera with its exquisite passages and the music, which I already knew by heart, I noticed the lack of interest in the expressions of all those bored people who only came to be fashionable, or to hear Madame Alboni. The rest of the performance seems so much useless trimming to them, and they can hardly sit through it without yawning. I, on the other hand, enjoyed everything. I said to myself, tonight they are playing for me. I am here quite alone, and some magician has had the charming idea of putting the ghosts of an audience around me, lest the thought of solitude lessen my pleasure. It is for me that they have painted the scenery and designed the costumes, and it is for me, the music, I alone am hearing it. When I first read that, I was shattered in several directions. I was on the road playing music with my good buddy Al Johnson for many years, and there were nights when, if there was just one person out there, or 2 we could see from the stage, who were really digging it, we could do the whole show for them. And here we have Delacroix trading places with them and being there in the audience. And I don't know why, I just love that whole thing. One more paragraph from Delacroix. And again, he's been out hearing music. And another thing that comes to mind reading these is I've been a writer and a musician all my life. And but I found that other writers, other musicians, there was always a little circumspect thing with them. We all steal, and so you'd get too close to them, and they'd start to clam up because they know you're going to walk out that door and take their good idea. But with visual artists, that's not the case. Writers and visual artists get along really well, and I always have, and. So here is another paragraph, and this is from 1853, Wednesday, November the 30th. What a life I am leading! Such were my thoughts as I listened to the exquisite music, and especially to the Mozart, where everything breathes the peace of a well-ordered age. At my time of life, the turmoil of violent passions no longer disturbs the delicious sensation that works of art give me. I don't know what it means to have to deal with official papers and cope with boring tasks, as most men do. Instead of thinking about business, I think only of Rubens or Mozart. My chief concern for a whole week is the memory of an aria, or of a picture. I go to my work as other men hurry to their mistress. And when I stop, I take with me into the solitude of my home, abroad when I go in search of distractions, a delightful memory that bears no relation to the lover's uneasy pleasure. Now, wouldn't that be great if every time you got up to go to work, you had the exhilaration of an assignation, going to meet a lover? Wow. Okay, that's my Delacroix. I'm going to read a couple of poems from this big, beautiful thing. This came out about 25 years ago, I think, and it's called The Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart. And it was put together by Robert Bly and James Hillman and Michael Mead. I love these guys. And it's called Poems for Men. And I remember when it came out, giving it to some guys I know. And I'll tell you, they never read a word of it. And I'll bet that people who read this book the most are women. And that's a shame, because men owe it to themselves. I've read this thing through 20 times, and I never tire of it. And each of those poets have a magnificent preamble to each of the sections that they curated. And those, in and of themselves, are just magnificent. Anyway, so I'll give you this now. We got a little candlelight going here. Where is it? Over there? Yeah. I love to work by candlelight. I think one of my favorite stories of literature is Honoré de Balzac, who would he'd light 50 or 60 candles, and he'd make pots of coffee, and he'd write all night. And he'd write in longhand, and he would take it to printers, and they would have to print it up, and then he would do his editing from their printings. It was a unique way of doing things at the time, and it was wildly expensive. And plus, he would work all night, and he would know time was ending when the candles burned down. And then he'd scoot over to somebody else's place, and he'd sleep there all day because he couldn't be at home because all of the creditors from his printers, from printing up those rough drafts, were banging on his door. Well, I was fortunate enough about 10 years ago with my beautiful wife to go to Paris, and I actually saw that room. And looks kind of like this. This is called The Wild Old Wicked Man, and it's by W.B. Yeats. Because I am mad about women, I am mad about the hills, said that wild old wicked man who travels where God wills. Not to die on the straw at home, those hands to close these eyes. That is all I ask, my dear, from the old man in the sky. Daybreak and the candle end. Kind are all your words, my dear, do not the rest withhold. Who can know the year, my dear, when an old man's blood grows cold? I have what no young man can have, because he loves too much. Words I have that can pierce the heart. But what can he do but touch? Daybreak and the candle end. Then said she to that wild old man, his stout stick under his hand, love to give or to withhold is not at my command. I gave it all to an older man, that old man in the skies. Hands that are busy with his beads can never close those eyes. Daybreak and the candle end. Go your ways, oh go your ways, I choose another mark, girls down on the seashore who understand the dark. Bawdy talk for fishermen, a dance for the fisher lads. When dark hangs over the water, they turn down their beds, daybreak and the candle end. A young man in the dark am I, but a wild old man in the light, that can make a cat laugh or can touch my mother wit, things hid in their marrow bones from time long passed away, hid from all those warty lads that by their bodies lay. Daybreak and the candle end. All men live in suffering, I know as few can know, whether they take the upper road or stay content on the low. Rower bent to his rowboat, or weaver bent at his loom, horseman erect on horseback, or a child hid in the womb. Daybreak and a candle end. That some stream of lightning from the old man in the skies can burn out that suffering no right-taught man denies. But a coarse old man am I choose the second best. I forget it all the while upon a woman's breast. Daybreak and a candle end. I just think that's fabulous. And I'll do one more, and then we'll get on to the rest of it. This is also by Yeats. mad as the mist and snow. Bolt and bar the shutter, for the soul winds blow, for the foul winds blow. Our minds are at their best this night, and I seem to know that everything us... I'm going to start over. Bolt and bar the shutter, for the foul winds blow. Our minds are at their best this night, and I seem to know that everything outside us is mad as the mist and snow. Horace here by Homer stands, Plato stands below. And here is Tully's open page. How many years ago were you and I unlettered lads, mad as the mist and snow? You ask what makes me sigh, old friend, what makes me shudder so? I shudder and I sigh to think that even Cicero and many-minded Homer were mad as the mist and snow. Rag and bone shop of the heart. Come and get it. All right. Now, this next thing I'm going to do is from an upcoming book I'm working on. I mentioned it last week, called Junk Shop Window. And this is, again, to be read in candlelight. I know that they had a big blizzard out west, in the Midwest yesterday, and bad weather's coming our way. But in the quarantine, I think maybe some of us are staying up a little later than usual. Maybe you're up all night. I know I love to do that. I like to write at night. I like to do my rough drafts at night, let's put it that way. And so here's a piece, kind of, sort of, about that. And it's called The Memory of Tomorrow. It is 10 till 2 a.m. on a Thursday morning in late January. A winter storm has temporarily cut off the power. Many candles burn. The candlelight loves the heavy red velvet curtains, the cranberry wallpaper, with images all the color of copper turned teal green, of nymphs and flower urns. A stick of amber incense adds a subtle sweetness to the atmosphere, an atmosphere that wants poetry and good red wine. My wife, Rochelle, sleeps upstairs. The house is quiet. The neighborhood is quiet, in the way only a slow, heavy snowfall can hush the world. It's the memory of quiet that makes me look up from my book to take in the candlelight. The quiet invokes a familiar feeling. It's a feeling I realize I've had many times before, but once it passes, I forget about it until it returns. And as I return to my reading, reveling in the delicious cadences of long, well-written poems, the ingenuity of revealed wisdoms, the unexpected turns of thought that can surprise even after many readings over many years, I am suddenly aware of a background ambiance. Is it an echo from far off? Pausing to listen, I recognize it. A comforting sound, familiar all the way to my bones. I smile and return to my reading when I suddenly have the kind of wait a minute revelation one has when they detect that something is very out of order. Because the sound that has comforted me late at night at times like this throughout my life is not possible. It is the clippity-clop sound of a horse trotting on cobblestones in the snow, pulling a small carriage in the night. The book I'm reading falls to the floor. Almost worried, partly amused, I stand and walk to the window. Snow is falling slow and steady between the houses. I go to the front door and pull it open and step out onto the sheltered front step. The cold is thrilling. Breathing it in has a purifying effect on my lungs. Was I half expecting to see gas lamps out on the street and a carriage coming up the hill in the snow? Maybe I was. But the power is out, and all is hush and dark. The snow falling has a soft sound of air moving gently. It tastes like electricity. Sometimes a snowfall like this one actually warms the air somewhat. Friction, I suppose. But it is too cold to stand here all night, although I want to. The veil between worlds has become very thin. How do I know that? Because each of my senses is being called to it. The senses I know and think I can direct, and the ones I'm not aware of. They are searching for a thread after taking a hint. In this state, I doubt anything could surprise me. If an ancestor I've not heard of, maybe one who looks a little like me, male or female, or even some hound or other animal familiar, should step out of the falling snow and hand me something I need or impart a piece of advice or warning or merely a comfort, I would accept it. If that creature stepped out of the snow and demanded a gift, I would give it. I turned my head slowly side to side, encouraging those senses to reach out and explore. I am tempted to make a slow sideways movement, like a Tai Chi gesture, a secret step, and if I do it properly, an open sesame will occur. I will see the Pythagorean angles in time all around, and if I want to, I could slip between them, becoming myself in adumbration, and I would be standing in another time, another now, as another me. Pleasant voices echo quietly from a short distance away in the falling snow, their words not quite discernible to me. It's as if in this half space, this odd moment, so random and rare, I'm home. I know these people. They know me. Love is present. But I'm on the front porch of my house, late of a wintry night. It is 2019. I'm older. The love of my life is upstairs quietly sleeping, and I'm happy, happier than I've ever been, and I can hear the snow-muffled clippity-clop of the horse and carriage, as though it was coming from just the other side of those dark, quiet houses across the street, the sound slowly fading in the snow. I want to walk out into the night and follow this. I don't dare. The chill finally penetrates my heavy sweater and jeans. Back inside, I remember lying in my bed as a child on a night like this, hearing that noise while watching the snowflakes pass through the light from the street lamp out my bedroom window. Then, I'm middle-aged, at a pension in Verona. I get up in the middle of the night and run to the window and see nothing in the street but parked cars. Then, in my late 20s, in a spooky old house in central Ontario, Canada, the moonlight bright through the window, turning everything blue, there it is again. In many different places and settings have I had this subconscious experience, now brought vividly forward in my mind, each time taking for granted that such a sound, even the impossibility of it, was normal. Like it was as natural as any other sound that might occur in the middle of the night, in winter, when you're alone with your mind. Lately, in books and magazines, I have noticed philosophers and physicists revisiting the idea that all time happens simultaneously, that there is no yesterday or tomorrow, there is only the now, that the other lives you may have led you are actually leading now, at the same time, that the places you go in your dreams are the places your other selves inhabit, and the people you meet in those dreams reside there too. But in the here and now, those people pass in your dreams as random imaginings, or bits of memory and collage. When first I was exposed to that notion, I instantly felt that it was true. It explains déjà vu, precognitive dreams, premonitions, perhaps a lot more. People depended upon horses for thousands of years. The new houses across my street are in a development called the Mews. Was there a public stable there once upon a time? My parents were old enough to remember from their childhoods people using horses to get around, so it really wasn't that long ago since the use of horses in daily life ended. In my early 20s, a girlfriend gave me a set of Sherlock Holmes mysteries. I devoured them. But what I found so enchanting wasn't necessarily the charming characters of Holmes and Watson, though charming they be, nor was it the clever and complicated plots and the unpredictable solutions they inspired, nor was it the clean, clear prose Conan Doyle used to harness his fictional structures. No, it was the transport into that strange world of late 19th century London I found so mesmerizing. Candlelight, a slow, smoldering fireplace, dense pipe tobacco, musty, crowded bookshelves that sit heavy in the room. Dressing every day in tweeds, cotton, starched shirts, heavy sweaters, hats that fit well, shielded the eyes and kept one's head warm and dry. The smells of horsehide and dung, burning coal, claret, good port or strong whiskey overtaking the senses, where everything is made from iron, steel, tin, heavy leather, and good hardwood. Is my suddenly hearing a horse-drawn carriage an atavistic feeling? What else could it be? Is a quiet late-night snowfall an ambient trigger to memories stored in my DNA? After falling in love with Arthur Conan Doyle's stories, I quit my job, and at the suggestion of a radio disc jockey who lived across the hall, I decided to recreate some of those Holmes stories as audio dramas for the radio. I thought I was going to be the next Orson Welles. One night, at about 2 or 3 in the morning, the studio director where I was recording my adaptations called to say, "Jimmy, the neighborhood is quiet. Get over here." That's a shout out to my old pal, Bob Dawson. It was a hot summer night when I arrived. He had set up his microphones on an upstairs balcony. He was right. There was no traffic at all. What we were after was an outdoor ambiance that could serve as background for the outdoor scenes we were creating. Getting an outdoor sound without cars or airplanes or any modern indicators was almost impossible. The night was quiet. We sat in the studio listening to nothing, and the needles on the recording studio's machines weren't moving. So I went out onto the balcony and howled like an old dog. Woo, woo, woo! And lo and behold, dogs from all the neighborhoods around began barking back, creating just enough echo to register on the machines. I'm thinking this, and using that memory to analyze the sounds I think I'm hearing now from behind the snowfall outside. No, I conclude, there is no rational explanation for what I'm hearing. I'm hearing hoofbeats. Clip-clop, 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 clip-clop. I pour some wine and return to my book of poems. But this strange revelation regarding what I have been hearing or not hearing has put me in a mood of nervous disquiet, and never until this moment did I find it odd in any way, which of course is odd. I put down the book again. Maybe it's these damn poems that do this to me, I laughed to myself, as I reached for my journal. Not long ago, I would have sat down and written someone a letter. I used to write dozens of letters as a way to warm up to a writing session. I would write a letter to a friend, then write basically that same letter to a second friend, and then perhaps a third to a third, growing my ideas and the nature of my inquiries with customized alterations depending on each individual recipient's circumstances, while remaining conscientious about how those circumstances did or did not bump up against my own. Within a few weeks, postcards, letters containing long off-topic free associations, even books on related subjects would start arriving in the mail. These communications benefited by being gradual rather than immediate. Mind you, reciprocity from my pen pals was always weak in volume, if not in substance. What's worse is that since the publication of my first book of essays, those old chums have taken it upon themselves to do me the favor of returning to me my many correspondences from over the years. I was astonished to learn they had kept them. There's a kind of morbid finality to opening a packet containing your own letters, some written as far back as 40 years ago. It occurs to me that the letter I would have written tonight, normally addressed to an intimate yet innocent bystander, is the page beneath my pen right now. Is it for my son? Maybe. To a grandchild living or unborn? Perhaps a great-grandchild may take an interest, find these emotives of happenstance I give voice to, of some interest, but I doubt it. No, these missives are for people whom I will never meet. Perhaps that's as it should be. These late-night meanderings are somehow more accessible when approached with indifference, as if they will be placed in and ultimately found in a sort of tomorrow box, left for an unknown apprentice to help decipher and decode. A friend asked me once if his turning 50 was too late for him to begin a journal. Of course not. You may live another 30 years, so explore your thoughts and experiences. I gave him a few pointers. Above all, don't bitch. Include sights, sounds, and other senses. Write down what people say, and remember, someday, someone might read it. They will find it in the tomorrow box you build each day. Keep whomever that might be in mind. Be nice to them. They may be the last person on earth to ever fall in love with you. Initially in my writing, I intended to merely explore my own mind, because without this process, most ideas and inquiries will flicker by and then extinguish themselves unexamined, like hearing the clip-clop, clip-clop, clip-clop of a horse trotting in the snow. I get up to step one more time out the front door. Perhaps this time I will take that side-eye turn. But the power comes back on with a sudden flash of light. Music resumes playing from the living room. The furnace in the basement thunders back to life. A television somewhere starts hollering. I turn most everything off, returning the house to quietude and candlelight. I finish my wine and the poem I was reading and go upstairs. Rochelle is still purring like a kitten. I crawl into bed beside her, and as I yawn and stretch and settle in, I see out the bedroom window snowflakes gently falling through the beam from the street lamp outside. And as all returns to darkness and quiet, the comforting clip-clop, clip-clop, clip-clop of a lone horse in the muffled distance returns, gently pulling a carriage through the snow, creating a backbeat that carries me all the way into tomorrow. Thanks for coming by. I want to remind you that Alan Squire Publishing is there for you. We've got books, almost everything's half price. Everything's half price. Write them a note. Say, Jimmy said to give it to me for half price. Anyway, alansquirepr.com. I'll be back next week. I'll do some more. I'll dig up some stuff. This is James J. Patterson. My friends call me Jimmy. Bye for now.